Up next, the Supreme Court delivers a huge blow to the Biden administration's vaccine mandate for companies with 100 or more employees.
The FDA says stop using these at-home tests to check for COVID-19.
Skyrocketing rent prices around the county. A new rent report breaks down the rising numbers.
With its highest visitor numbers ever, Seaport Village is bringing tourists and locals back downtown.
And we've got the professional do's and don'ts of saying I do in 2022.
And the new word game that's gone viral and become the latest internet obsession. CBS 8 News Live at 6 starts now.
The U.S. Supreme Court put a stop to the Biden administration's vaccine mandate for larger companies. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetta.
I'm Marcella Lee. It would have required workers to get vaccinated or get tested weekly. We will have more on what today's ruling by the justices means for local businesses in just a moment.
But first, Natalie Brand has more from Washington tonight on the decision itself.
The Supreme Court has blocked the Biden administration's vaccine or test rule for U.S. businesses less than a week after arguments before the conservative majority High Court.
The Supreme Court's decision on the OSHA mandate essentially means that in this pandemic, it is up to individual employers to determine whether their workplaces will be safe for employees.
But the justices allowed the vaccine mandate for healthcare workers at federally funded facilities. The decision comes as President Biden tries to ramp up his strategy to battle the latest COVID surge, announcing the administration will double its purchase of at-home rapid tests.
I mean, 1 billion tests in total to meet future demand.
The president says a website rolling out next week will allow Americans to sign up for the first 500 million home kits for free. It's a plan aimed to ease the burden on overwhelmed testing sites and emergency rooms.
So many hospital staff are sick that we don't have enough people to take care of the patients that we have.
Starting next week, additional military medical teams will deploy to hospitals in 6 states with staffing shortages, from New York to New Mexico.
These are additional teams that were requested in December, and we're sending them out now to the hospitals that have the greatest need.
In the face of the highly transmissible Omicron variant, the president also previewed an announcement next week about making high-quality masks available for free. While some doctors believe the Omicron surge may have reached its peak in some parts of the country, the CDC says more than 99% of U.S. counties report high transmission. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
San Diego businesses that have rallied against the vaccine mandate say today's ruling is a win.
That means businesses that have not required employees get vaccinated won't have to, but it doesn't mean businesses can't require employees to get the shot.
CBS 8's Abby Alford explains why it doesn't impact San Diego police officers and firefighters.
The Supreme Court's ruling impacts hundreds of businesses here in San Diego that have been fighting against the vaccine mandate. More than 430 San Diego County businesses who have rallied against vaccine mandates say the Supreme Court's ruling against the Biden administration's vaccine mandate is a temporary win.
So it was affirming to our business community's choice to stand for freedom for each and every one of their employees.
Michael Seifert created Public Square, an app with nearly 500 businesses who say it's for freedom-loving businesses who can help hire, network, and help customers shop.
This is a group of businesses that were committed to freedom, no matter what the Supreme Court were to say this morning.
However, the group is disappointed in the court's ruling that still allows vaccine mandates for healthcare workers. It also allows for private companies to have mandates. Local employment attorney Arlene Yang says it would not have impacted healthcare workers in California.
California had already had a vaccine mandate earlier, so it doesn't affect California healthcare workers.
And this does not apply to public employees such as San Diego police officers and firefighters.
The mandates that are currently in place are still in place as it applies to public employees with agencies that have them.
Jim Cunningham represents the San Diego Firefighters Union and county employees.
I can tell Mayor Todd Gloria, Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, and Governor Newsom that their mandates that are in place are still legal and still enforceable.
In reaction to the ruling, a county spokesperson sent this statement to CBS News 8. In part, it says county public health continues to strongly recommend that everyone eligible get vaccinated and boosted to protect themselves and others. Now, the ruling is not final. It's just put on pause until the lower courts can decide. Businesses against the vaccine mandate say they will continue to fight.
we expand. We really take this message in stride.
The Supreme Court's ruling does not impact school districts that are mandating vaccines.
All right, Abby, thanks. Millions of workers across the country who don't get paid sick days are having to choose between a paycheck and their health. Many essential workers say receiving 2 weeks of COVID-19 supplemental paid sick days is more crucial now than before because a lot of people are going back to work sick and potentially spreading the virus. California required businesses with more than 25 employees pay for some COVID sick time last year, but that supplemental benefit ended in September. Now some essential workers are trying to get that back.
Paid sick leave is as basic and critical as getting vaccinated or wearing a mask.
There has not been a set timeline for California lawmakers to take up the issue, but essential workers say their unions are working on it.
President Biden announced his plan to get 500 million free at-home test kits to Americans with a website launching next week. The plan to mail those tests comes as the FDA warns against certain brands.
The agency says the tests in question have not been authorized by the FDA and have a high risk of false results, leaving people to possibly transmit the virus unknowingly. CBS 8's Kirsten Holmes talked to one man who got a false negative and who says he and those around him are some of the lucky ones.
The FDA says the tests are sold under Lucent Diagnostics or Vivera Pharmaceuticals. But while we were looking, we found a few other places that you might find the tests that the FDA says you should just throw away.
The FDA also says beware of tests with the trade name Eagle DX. But we also found this site linked to the Lucis Laboratories test that the FDA is asking labs and people to stop using. Dr. Jotu Sandhu says, when in doubt, confirmation is key.
If you're negative on an antigen test, it doesn't mean you don't have COVID. So you got to confirm it with a PCR test.
Dr. Sandhu also says the at-home tests are better at detecting higher levels of the COVID-19 virus.
PCR will pick it up at a very low level, which is it has high sensitivity and specificity.
President Biden announced he's ordering another 500 million free at-home COVID-19 tests in addition to the 500 million he announced last month, as well as free high-quality masks. A website will launch next week for Americans to order the tests. But for the growing list of COVID-19 patients like Chris Hooks, he hopes the at-home tests are accurate.
Had several symptoms: cough, sore throat, a little nausea. And tired.
But when he took an at-home test, it came back negative.
I was mostly at home, really wasn't going out. I think we went to the grocery store once, but even then we do pick up groceries. We don't go inside the store.
After a relative tested positive for COVID, Chris took a PCR test too. This time, it was positive. Chris says he and those around him are lucky he didn't go anywhere to spread the virus unknowingly.
It's frustrating because, obviously the people who do that can obviously pass on COVID if they do have it, but it's also not their fault.
But he says he understands why at-home tests are still necessary.
If you don't have symptoms and you're fully vaccinated, you got your booster, all of those things, and you're like, hey, I need to go out to a friend's house.
Chris says the false negatives are frustrating for folks who are doing everything they can to play it safe from COVID-19.
You get vaccinated. You get your booster, you wear your masks, you wear the tight-fitting mask, not the cloth mask.
And when it comes to who to hold responsible,
it's hard to blame individual people for, infrastructure issues.
Doctors we talked to say PCR tests are the way to go, but if you want to use an at-home test, go ahead and get a PCR test as a backup. Kirsten Holmes, CBS 8.
If you're a renter, you probably already know how hard it is to find an affordable place to live these days.
New data confirms what we already know. Rent has skyrocketed over the last year across the region. In this Your Stories report, News 8's Brian White shows us where rents are rising the fastest.
If you rent in San Diego or anywhere around the county for that matter, then you've noticed the soaring rent prices from year to year. And with this new report, we can break down the numbers.
Throughout the course of 2021, we were really seeing rent growth far above the typical trends that we were used to in pre-pandemic years.
According to researchers at apartmentlist.com, over the last year, San Diego saw a staggering rate of growth in rent prices at 18.3%. Surrounding cities saw similar rent hikes with Vista, Escondido, Oceanside, and Carlsbad all around 20%. And Chula Vista not far behind at a 16.9% rise in rent over the past year.
that 17% that we're talking about in Chula Vista is still an extremely high rate of rent growth.
When compared to previous years, these rates of increase are astronomical.
I mean, it's huge. Typically, inflation in terms of rent in the low single digits.
Dr. Alan Jin is an economics professor at the University of San Diego, and he says rent growth numbers like these really put pressure on the cost of living for people with lower incomes.
People at the lower end are more likely to be renters, and so if the rents go up almost 20%, that's more money than out of their pocket.
According to ApartmentList.com, median rent prices in San Diego are $1,850 for a one-bedroom apartment and $2,450 for two bedrooms. Looking around the county, Carlsbad tops the list with $2,230 for a one-bedroom and $2,830 for two bedrooms, whereas Chula Vista shows up as one of the more affordable options, with one-bedroom units at $1,630 and two bedrooms at $2,250.
You tend to find lower prices both in the South Bay and also in East County. And so rents tend to be lower in those areas.
So when rent prices year to year typically see growth anywhere from 1% to 5%, why did the numbers rise so drastically last year?
We're seeing more and more folks just simply renewing leases. And so, I think some of that is just due to folks not maybe wanting to move during the pandemic. At the same time, we've been seeing delays in the construction pipeline related to the pandemic as well. Labor shortages, increases in materials costs, particularly lumber, are definitely having a factor there.
If you'd like to see the rent report in its entirety, just visit our website at cbs8.com and click on this story.
If you have a story you would like us to cover here on News 8, send us an email at yourstories@kfmb.com.